A little girl named Eve lives alone with her father, Javier. Eve loves ballet, something her father has always encouraged. On her birthday, he gives her a ballerina music box, a small but precious symbol of their bond. One night, while they're relaxing at home, their quiet evening turns into chaos. A group of mercenaries storms the house. Whoever they are, Javier seems to have expected this. In an instant, his instincts take over. He fights with lethal precision, taking down one attacker after another. It's clear from the way he moves that he isn't just an ordinary man. Realizing the danger, Javier hides Eve in a secret room. But the mercenaries keep coming, and eventually he's overwhelmed. Their leader finally appears, a man known as the Chancellor, who has come to take Eve away. As the frightened little girl hides, her story begins. This is Ballerina. Soon it's revealed that the Chancellor commands an ancient secret sect, one that has existed for 1,000 years. Javier was once a member, but betrayed them. Now, the Chancellor wants Eve to become part of their next generation, along with other children from around the world. He gives Javier a pistol with a single bullet, a cruel offer to redeem himself. But when Eve calls out for her father, that moment of distraction becomes Javier's chance. He fights back, taking out several men before the Chancellor disappears into the night. Amid the chaos, Eve notices a scar shaped like an X on one of the soldiers. Javier triggers an explosive device and carries Eve outside. Even after being shot, he refuses to stop until she's safe. Seconds later, the house erupts in flames. With his final breath, Javier tells Eve to take care of herself. Now completely alone, Eve reports everything to the police. But soon, someone unexpected appears, Winston, the manager of the Continental Hotel. He takes the orphan girl to a place called Roma, a training ground for assassins. There, Eve is left under the care of a woman known only as the director, who will raise and shape her into someone unstoppable. 12 years later, Eve is no longer the fragile little girl she once was. She's now a disciplined ballerina, trained directly under the watchful eye of the director. At Roma, every female recruit learns both the grace of dance and the precision of killing. Ballet is not just art here, it's balance, a way to control both body and mind in a world built on violence. After finishing her ballet session, Eve moves straight into combat training alongside other recruits. From hand-to-hand combat to firearms, every skill they master is essential for survival. Unlike veteran assassins, Eve and her peers are taught to focus on protection assignments, learning how to defend high-profile clients. Years of relentless training and pain shape Eve into something extraordinary. By the time she completes her 12th year, she's recognized as the best in her class, both feared and admired. But before she can truly earn her place, she must face one final test. The target is one of her own seniors, caught betraying the organization. Without hesitation, Eve pulls the trigger, and in that moment, her transformation is complete. Later, as she stands alone, memories of her father flood back until the infamous John Wick has arrived, seeking protection from Roma, hunted by assassins from every corner of the world. When his business there is done, Eve finally gets to see the man behind the legend. She's heard stories about him her entire life, stories whispered among the recruits about a man who defied the impossible. For Eve, he's more than a legend. But instead of stepping away from this world like he once advised her, Eve chooses her own path. She accepts her first mission, to protect a wealthy Asian heiress from a rival organization. Confident and fearless, Eve dives straight into action. Moments later, the mission turns deadly. A group of men ambushes the heiress, but Eve doesn't hesitate. Her training takes over, every move precise, every shot deliberate. Within seconds, the attackers are down. After completing her first mission with flawless precision, Eve finally earns her official Roma tattoo, a permanent mark of membership, and a symbol of what she's become. From that moment on, her work grows darker. Each assignment pushes her further from the person she once was, turning her into a ruthless professional who no longer questions morality or mercy. But one night, on her way home, Eve is ambushed by another assassin sent to eliminate her. The fight is quick and brutal, and Eve easily takes him down. As she examines the aftermath, a scar shaped like an X on the man's arm, identical to the mark worn by the mercenaries who killed her father years ago, catches her eye. Haunted by the memory, Eve storms into the director's office, demanding the truth. That's when she learns the director has known about the ancient sect all along, but chose silence to avoid war. She warns Eve to walk away, to let the past stay buried. But Eve isn't the kind to obey orders blindly. Feeling betrayed, she turns to the one man who might help her, Winston, the manager of the Continental. Unlike the director, Winston welcomes her with calm respect. She offers him a single gold coin, the universal currency of their world, and asks for information about the sect. Winston agrees, but not without a warning. The group she's chasing is no ordinary cult. It's a 1,000-year-old brotherhood of chaos, known for its brutality and lack of humanity. Long ago, they struck a fragile truce with the High Table, Ruska Roma, and the Continental. Breaking that peace could mean reigniting a war that once consumed the underground world. Still, Eve is determined. Winston contacts the High Table central operator and manages to trace one of the sect's current members, a man named Pine, who's now staying at the Continental branch in Prague. Without hesitation, Eve sets off for Prague that very night. The Continental there is filled with dangerous guests, every one of them a professional killer bound by the same unspoken rules. Among them is a woman named Lena, another assassin with the same target in her sights. But Lena isn't working alone. From a building across the street, her team has eyes locked on Pine's hotel room, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Eve checks into a room right next to Pine's, wasting no time before making her move. Carefully, she steps along the narrow window ledge to slip into his suite unnoticed. But once inside, she finds a little girl named Ella. Before she can react, Pine appears from behind, gun in hand. The child, it turns out, is his daughter. He's been hiding her here, desperately trying to escape the sect that once controlled him. The scene mirrors Eve's own past, where her father is fighting to protect her from the same kind of monsters. Hearing Pine's story leaves her torn. She came here to kill him, but everything about this moment feels painfully familiar. Meanwhile, Lena receives word from her lookout team that Eve is inside Pine's room. Mistaking Eve's hesitation for betrayal, she doubles the bounty on Pine's head, turning every assassin in the area into a hungry predator. Moments later, the quiet tension explodes into chaos. A brutal firefight breaks out inside the room. Bullets tear through walls and furniture as Eve makes her choice to side with Pine. Together, they fight back against the assassins, trying to buy enough time for him and his daughter to escape. Inside a descending elevator, Pine pleads with Eve to protect Ella. In exchange, he promises her everything he knows about the sect. But before they can reach the ground floor, fate turns against them. A new assassin appears and shoots Pine. Eve is struck from behind, knocked unconscious, and Ella is captured to be delivered straight to the Chancellor. The chaos draws the attention of the Continental's managers. Under the rules of the High Table, any act of violence within the hotel is strictly forbidden. Eve and the other two assassins are brought before the Hotel Council for judgment. Since Eve didn't kill anyone on the premises, she's spared while the others are executed on the spot. When the ordeal ends, Eve doesn't rest. Instead, she heads to a familiar weapons shop, one often visited by John Wick himself. With her gold coin, she begins selecting specialized firearms for her next mission. But before she can finish, the door bursts open as the mercenaries from the sect have tracked her down. Cornered with nowhere to run, Eve spots a crate of explosives behind the counter. If she can't escape, she'll take them all down with her. Seconds later, the building erupts in a thunderous explosion. After the smoke clears from the gunfight, the furious shop owner realizes Eve isn't his enemy. Instead, he tells her where to find the Chancellor's main headquarters and the heart of the ancient sect. To help her get there, he hands over a set of weapons and a car, free of charge. Eve sets off alone, driving through a vast frozen wilderness. The director calls, urging her to stand down and avoid starting a war. But Eve isn't one to follow orders. Like John Wick himself, she's stubborn, determined, and ready to face whatever comes her way. She finally arrives at a small restaurant in a snow-covered village. Trying to blend in, she orders a coffee, pretending to be just another traveler. But the people inside already know who she is. Before long, a man walks in and opens fire. The cafe erupts into chaos. What follows is a tense and brutal fight between Eve and a seasoned assassin. He's fast, but not fast enough. Eve breaks his arm, turns the tables, and kills him without hesitation. Before she can catch her breath, a woman in the kitchen, part of the same sect, emerges. Their fight is fierce and personal, smashing through dishes and glass as they battle for survival. But the attacks keep coming, one after another. Eve is outnumbered, and with nowhere left to hide, she runs. Up in a watchtower, the Chancellor's men spot her, and moments later, the village alarm bell rings. Civilians rush indoors, leaving the streets empty. The hunt has officially begun, and Eve is the prey. This isn't just any village. Nearly every adult here is a loyal member of the sect, ready to die for their leader. Eve fights as best she can, but the odds are impossible. Eventually, she's captured by Lena and the others. Meanwhile, Ella is revealed to be at the Chancellor's private estate. When Lena reports Eve's capture, the Chancellor is pleased and curious. Eve wakes tied to a chair, face to face with the man who destroyed her family. The Chancellor taunts her, impressed that she dared to come here alone. But Eve's anger cuts through her fear. She accuses him of murdering her father 12 years ago. For a moment, the Chancellor is silent, then he remembers her as Javier's daughter, the child of a traitor. But he also drops a shocking revelation: Lena is her sister, taken from their father years earlier and raised by him. The truth stuns them both. Before the moment can sink in, gunfire echoes through the halls. Eve has broken free, killing her guards and making her escape. Ignoring the Chancellor's warnings, Lena chases after her through the snow. Inside one of the nearby houses, the two women finally face each other, not as enemies, but as blood. Lena explains the truth about their family, how their father's betrayal doomed their mother, and how his desperate attempt to give Eve a normal life tore them all apart. As Lena and Eve share a quiet moment, the sect soldiers find their hiding place. Furious, the Chancellor orders his men to finish the job. A grenade is tossed into the house, and the explosion rips through everything. When the dust settles, Lena is killed before she can say another word to her sister. Now completely alone, Eve is consumed by rage. She grabs a katana lying nearby and storms out into the chaos, cutting through the enemy one by one. Her fury is unstoppable. Realizing that Eve is still alive and far more dangerous than expected, the Chancellor contacts the director, demanding accountability for the chaos caused by one of her own trainees. The director, unwilling to risk open conflict, promises to handle the situation herself. She gives an order that no one expected. She sent John Wick. When the Chancellor hears the name, he immediately orders his people to stand down. No one is to interfere. The Baba Yaga is coming. Amid the ruins of a half-destroyed building, Eve and John Wick finally cross paths again. He gives her one last chance to walk away, to leave this life behind. But Eve's hatred runs too deep. After 12 years of carrying the same pain, she refuses to back down. The two engage in a fierce, relentless fight. John's experience gives him the upper hand, and Eve is knocked down time and time again. But something about her spirit stops him. Her determination reminds him of himself. Instead of killing her, John makes a deal. He'll let her finish her revenge, but if she fails before midnight, he'll be forced to end it himself. With that, Eve sets out on her final rampage. She hunts through the compound, cutting down guards with brutal precision. Inside a weapons storage facility, she finds a flamethrower. It becomes her weapon of choice, scorching through squads of assassins in a single sweep. But soon, she faces an equal opponent, the Chancellor's top enforcer, armed with the same weapon. The two unleash waves of fire at each other in a fiery duel that lights up the tunnels like hell itself. In the end, Eve narrowly escapes, diving through a shattered window. Eve doesn't stop. Fueled by vengeance, she hunts down the remaining soldiers patrolling the streets, burning them all until nothing is left but smoke and ash. The Chancellor, realizing his army has been reduced to almost nothing, decides to flee and takes Ella with him. But Eve's flamethrower finally runs dry. When the Chancellor's lieutenant appears, she's forced to improvise. Spotting a water hose nearby, she grabs it and faces him head-on. Flames and water clash in a fierce struggle, but the fire wins. Eve is thrown back, her defenses crumbling as the lieutenant closes in for the kill. Just when it seems over, a single gunshot rings out. The lieutenant's weapon explodes in his hands. John Wick has intervened, silently lending his help. With that shot, he's drawn into the chaos himself. And in true John Wick fashion, he moves through the battlefield like a force of nature, dismantling the remaining soldiers one by one while Eve pushes forward to stop the Chancellor. Eve catches up just as his car is about to pull away. She shoots the driver, forcing the Chancellor to step out. Words are his only weapon now, but Eve isn't here to listen. The clock hasn't struck midnight yet, and she remembers the deal. With cold precision, she ends him and wipes out the last of his men. John Wick, having cleared the field, chooses not to finish his contract. Instead, he lets Eve and Ella go free. When he reports back to the director, he tells her simply that Eve has already killed the Chancellor and his followers. The director says nothing. 2 days later, peace returns for a moment. Eve reunites Ella with her father, Pine, who somehow survived with only minor wounds. Later, sitting quietly in a theater, Eve watches a ballet performance, but the world hasn't forgotten her. Somewhere out there, a new contract is issued. $6 million for Eve's head. The hunter has now become the hunted. So the moral of the story is, don't mess with a ballerina who can pirouette and pulverize you at the same time.